Hello, I am Abriel Catfish, and today I will be taking a tour of my Star Wars world. This was... So, soon, hopefully, if I have their permission on my channel, I'll be showing a couple of videos of my very first world, which was Frostica, I believe. I think almost every city I've had has been called that, but hush. This was my first world I ever built after that map was destroyed. So this was back when creative mode meant that you only had 3 blocks of dirt below you, and that's all you could get. So 1, 2, 3. As you can see, bedrock. That meant you had to place sand, you had to place all of it yourself without any kind of help. And I don't know which building I built first. I'm pretty sure it's these two possibly. But this was back when the Force Awakens was first coming out and everyone was hyped up for Star Wars again. I was hyped up for Star Wars. I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And yeah, this was way back when I was young, because some of these builds I had previously done, some of them, not all of them, some of them. But some of them had already previously been built, and I pretty much used this world as a first proper large-scale project in which I built more than just one thing. So originally, where I'm walking about now, obviously this, if you're a Star Wars fan or anything like that, this kind of looks like Tatooine. I use the word kind of because when I used this map, I originally based it on the old Star Wars Battlefront 2 map, and so the idea was you could jump on certain things, but nothing was too detailed. It was a bit iffy with the actual detail, but I also wanted to have it as a Hunger Game, because back in the day that was a really big cool thing that all the kids could, all the cool kids were doing. So originally I was going to have this as a kind of Hunger Games type thing, but then I ended up just building outwards. So for example, this area here, this was when this brick first came into the game. I don't know what brick this is, Endstone bricks. That was probably built when they first came into the game, so the first time they were ever available I used it. This is my ATST. I'm probably going to do a tutorial on this at some point because it's something that's fairly easy to build, although I will admit, and I'll be the first one to admit this, that this is really not a detailed build. It's got fair detail, but there's certain things I would change, like for example these guns. They are way too small. They just don't look right. I like the general shape of it, and to be fair, I like the general size. And once again, if you then compare it to the AT-AT, which I built, although we'll get to that in a bit because there's an entire story behind that. Obviously it's scaled properly, it's half the size, which is quite nice. Next is my AT-DP. Now this was when Star Wars Rebels was about. I believe I actually haven't got it, but I was a really big fan of the Lego AT-DP, but I wasn't willing to drop like £50 on an AT-DP because I looked and I was just thinking to myself that surely it's not worth that, surely it's cheaper, but whoops. Maybe in the future I'll get it on eBay or something. It'll be second hand probably, but you know what it is. The next thing I'm going to talk about is this AT-AT. Now, I always thought that I was original when I built this, and I thought to myself, incredible, I've built an incredible AT-AT, look how cool this is. But apparently not. Apparently it's based upon a model by Renault, I believe, and he built this, funny enough, about 6 or 7 years ago. And so I must have, way back when I was a kid, watched a whole bunch of those old tutorials and old videos. It wasn't even a tutorial at the time. I must have used that as inspiration for the build, and I would say this is original still because I'm pretty sure that I built that head without any help, but I'm almost certain that body is very, very similar to what he did. And when I transferred this across to my world, which I'm currently working on, I kind of looked at it, and to be fair, I also then looked at it, and I was working with a guy called Snoop Dogg on the Xbox. He's a lovely guy. You should check him out on the Instagram. His name is Hello There, General Hello There, I think. And he does some amazing Star Wars builds. He has a full-sized Venator, which just incredible. Massive fan, huge fan, and he's a good guy. He works with another guy, Jedi Ved, I think. But yeah, no, fantastic thing. This is my first order transport. I did get the Lego version of this, which was then why I built this, because I used that Lego model as the inspiration for this. So once again, where I used the Lego model, I made it incredibly small compared to how it actually is. But if you notice, it has a stair. So it's an old trick. You just put one of those down and it just hides the step up, which is quite cool. I've watched one of those videos recently where it's got the shortest possible highest staircase, which is quite cool. Oh my god, this is blood. Dun dun dun. What happened? I thought I'd use these as kind of wells, even though Tatooine technically shouldn't have it. But then I kind of also then went to Jakku ideas. So, you know, where the big Ronto thing, when Finn turns up and the animal's drinking from that muddy water, which is quite gross, but it was based upon those ideas. And just, yeah, it never got too far because I ended up moving to other areas and other projects, such as the Star Destroyer. So this was my first ever attempt at an Imperial Star Destroyer, and I was at the time the only person I knew who had ever actually attempted to build one of these on my Xbox. I made sure that I got around with people. You know, there's a guy called Jared Gaming. I used to play with him quite a bit. There was quite a few people, Bigby Stats, things like that, where I tried to hang about with them, and absolutely nobody that I ever met had ever built anything like this. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, which is Averill Catfish, funny enough, you'll know that I have far newer versions of this, where this is all reduced down in height and it's not quite so top heavy, because at the minute, when you look at it, it looks a bit silly at the top. It just needs, these bits just needed to be shorter. But as an overall model, it's fairly simple, but that's not a problem. It's quite a nice thing to actually have. In the future, as with many builds I've got, I could do a tutorial type thing on a Star Destroyer, because the general build is quite good. Like, as I said, not this specific model. I don't think I'd ever use this one, just because I don't think it's as good as some of the new ones I got. But if I was to, it would... I'd probably end up breaking it into a few videos just to kind of have the longevity of what I'm actually doing, you know? Because as I said, I could very easily do it in one video and then 3 hours or 4 hours later just be dead. Okay, going this way. Don't know what that is on the floor. However, as you can see, this was where I was zoning it to try and make it so that I could actually build. So here is Director Krennic's shuttle. Now, once again, as with everything I'm saying, I originally built a lot of these models based upon the Lego sets. And I am really happy with how this came out. For Director Krennic's shuttle, once again, you can see where the Lego was in. But I really was happy with how this came out. It came out with the right shape, it had the right fin sizes. And, I mean, if I was to put this next to my new Lambda class shuttles, I would actually be quite happy to say, yeah, this is a solid model, and I am actually quite pleased with how it came out, and I will stand by it and go, yeah, I did good. Right, this next one. So, I got a bit tenacious with an idea I had for this map, and an idea I had was to build a fairly large-scale Super Star Destroyer, and as you can see, it's got 5 engines like that. This was not going to be the Eclipse Star Destroyer, but it was going to be based upon the... Oh yeah, no, the Eclipse, not the Executor, that's it. Not the Executor, but the Eclipse. So it was going to be that large black dreadnought with the big fin at the front, which if you're a Legends fan of Star Wars, you'd know about. And yeah, I got to that point and I just kind of stopped because I realised I was being a silly goose. Here is Darth Maul's Sith Infiltrator, another really fantastic little ship. I have updated this a few times because it's okay, but once again, with a lot of my builds, I've realised that in universe, I've made them a lot smaller than they are. So, I mean, if I was to come back here, obviously I shouldn't be able to be this close to it and be this large. So a lot of the ships I have built, I've built too small. And that's a big problem I've got, is I've used wool, and for whatever reason I've still not really gone away from that. I still use wool quite a lot, but using wool obviously has its limitations, and as I say, sometimes I've been a bit silly with trying to keep with that whole theme. Now, one build I would say has come out nicely and has actually come out a really good shape was this one. The Gazanti class cruiser frigate drop ship thing. Really, really happy with how this came out. I think because as well, I just also used other blocks. Like I finally started using some of this terracotta and stuff like that. But one of those things I was really cool and happy with was I made it so that if you were inside, even though technically you can't really, but you can pretend to fly the spaceships or get into it kind of thing. I thought that was quite cool. In the future, you know, if I was to ever rebuild it kind of thing, I might possibly give it a ladder just so you can actually get in and out. But there's that. And quickly go up through the roof. Just give it a little fix, just because, you know, it's an old map and I don't revisit it often. I will only use it if I'm coming back for inspiration for builds. But for example, looking down, like, it's got a cool shape and I love the colour, but I feel that it could do better with some of the areas. You know, like these could be wider, it could be more shaped, blah blah blah. Let's carry on this way. A big mistake I made as well was I made it quite wide without actually giving it stuff. So it meant that getting around was a bit like, ugh. Oh my god. So this was my first ever attempt at a Manelian Falcon. Oh dear. It's saucer shaped. I'll give myself that. I won't say it's not saucer shaped. But apart from that, I'm pretty certain I failed miserably. Yeah, no, this is bad. Once again, I'm gonna blame Lego and previous me for doing that. This is based upon, in Jakku, there's the scene where they run through this to get to the Falcon. Although the Falcon should be over here, not over there. But as you can see, this whole area here is meant to be basically that pillar type thing in Jakku. And originally I was like, wow, that's really cool, and I was really pleased with myself when I did it. But once again, it's just one of those builds that as time's gone on, I've just gone a bit, yeah. It's not as good as I thought it was. One of those big things I could do with this map is I could just fill it in. So, you know, it's that /fill command I could use. But I don't want to. The map is how it was meant to be, you know, it's not done, but I feel that in the future I could possibly do things with it and possibly give it an update and give it all sorts of things. But I've got so many other maps which are newer and so many new builds which are actually finished that I'd rather continue doing rather than this, because I love this and it's a great build, but I love coming back to it rather than like looking at it now. So I'd rather not fill it in and then come back to it in the future and go, oh my god, I remember when I did this, or I remember when I did that, and that kind of thing, rather than having it as a kind of, you know. Right, this was meant to be a gigantic solar panel, so this was a bit of a experiment on my part, just to see how it would go. The idea is these glass things, these ice things, because once again, back in the day we didn't have coloured glass. These were meant to be electrodes that went into the ground that then spread the energy about, because I wasn't too sure on how that worked. And then another thing I'm actually really proud of was this is my original Endor styled landing pad. Now, if you've watched my TIE Interceptor video, which if future Bailey remembers to, I will link to at some point, but I doubt I will remember. I have rebuilt this, but far larger. So in my Endor styled map, you'll see that it's, first of all, it's probably double the height. Second of all, this area here is all done properly. And it's actually not just made out of wool. I keep trying to stop myself because it's too easy to just keep using things like wool. Right, this is my Sith Fury class interceptor, and that's what it's called. I forgot about the name of it in the other video. It's a Sith Fury class interceptor. And this, as I say, I've been playing Star Wars Jedi Star Wars: The Old Republic, and this is the ship. As I say, it's not great. I've got the size all wrong, I've got the shape all wrong, but you know what? I'm not disappointed by it. It kind of looks... It could be mistaken for a different kind of spaceship. I wouldn't specifically call it a Sith Fury class anymore, but back when I built it, I thought, wow, that's really cool. So over here was my first ever attempt at a kind of artsy, quirky building, and I'm going to put massive quotations around the word quirky, because it was basically quartz blocks with bedrock, because this was the first time we had quartz as well. We all had snow, but there's no concrete or anything like that, so this was my first time trying to mess about with quartz. Also, the McDonald's arches are all around us. There's no escaping McDonald's, even in the Star Wars universe. You will conform and you will buy a McCheeseburger today for just 99 cents. Let's have a look. So these buildings here I thought were quite cool. So the idea I had was basically, way back when, there was the edge of the map there, and then what the plan was basically just build this and then have it so that this corner here had the twin skyscrapers there, and then I'd have all the other skyscrapers just kind of around it. And the idea was that, number one, they were massively, massively tall. Like, they were way too tall. What I should have done is made it probably about this tall here and had it pause and then gone up with other buildings, because then other buildings kind of don't have to try and be so tall. Because as I went back towards that bit, as you can see, I've got it all marked out on the floor where I was going to have buildings. I worked out pretty quickly that actually I was being silly and I shouldn't have done that. But here's a little cool pink spaceship type thing. This will be just after Purpur. This is an end thing, I think. I don't know. I don't use it very often, so I'm not too sure. But yeah, this building here was probably about the right height. So maybe a tiny bit shorter to like here maybe. Just so then it could have a rising system. And to be quite frank, that's a possible idea for the future. Is what I could have done is, if I'd finished that, what I could then do is just set up all the structure blocks and then have it so it's copied and pasted around in the around it, so it's a massive proper like built-in city type thing. But nah, as I said, that's a no from me. Okay, so next here is a TIE launch thing. So what originally I planned to do was I was going to have it so that this was an Imperial base type thing. So I was going to have a Juggernaut, I was going to have a clone turbo tank, Juggernaut clone turbo tank, HAV1. But it was going to have this TIE launch system, and this was because in The Force Awakens you see the TIE fighters on this. Now in the Empire's time they didn't use these kind of things as much, I don't think. They instead used roof docking. So obviously they'd be on a clamp and then they'd go around and then be shot out, like with the Mandalorian with Moff Gideon's Gazant, is it? His light cruiser. I don't know specifically what kind of cruiser it is. One thing I dislike about this version of Minecraft, since I'm talking, is the fact that you can't just sprint up. I know you can use fireworks, but I don't want to have to keep using fireworks to get about. And also, I haven't always got a firework in my pocket kind of thing. And then it does that. I don't know why it keeps trying to put things in my offhand, especially when they don't work. But here we go. This is a bit faster. So, this is my first ever attempt at a Venator class Star Destroyer. Part 2. So, the first time I ever built this was on my first map, which, as I say, if I get the permission from the previous video editors, I'll be able to show. But I basically built this way back when, and it was... I originally had it so it was white and purple, and... No, it was white and blue. So to be fair, the very, very first time I ever built this, it was white and blue. And what happened was, it was... I built two of these types, and then I built one really big one. And the really big one was really bad. Like, it was... Imagine this, but scaled up. It was not great, but I kind of found it was cool kind of thing. And the only thing I've ever actually kept, which has been quite similar between the bridges, was actually the general shape. Just because I actually like being able to get into the bridge. As you can see, these are only too wide, so you can't quite get into here. But with the new models I've got, that shape there for the bridge, generally speaking, still fits quite nicely, which is quite cool. Right, let's try and firework myself over here. So, this here was my first ever attempt at the Ghost, which is the rebel ship from Star Wars Rebels. It's unique. I'll give future past me that. I'll say it was unique. Beyond that, I can't really say too many positive things. It's the colour scheme's all wrong. It's a bad shape. It's just an ugly design in general. I mean, what's even going on with this glass? I mean, clearly it's meant to be a gun, but I mean, come on, man. Ugh. Right, here is some TIE fighters. So, if you've been watching the channel, you'll see that you've made this one before. This is just a normal TIE fighter. And you'll also recognise that in the past, I used to use Netherwart rather than the lanterns for engines. Excuse me, that was me counting the blocks. This is the TIE Interceptor, and once again, you'll see I've used Netherwart rather than lanterns, which is quite fun. This was here my first attempt at a TIE Striker. This you will probably never see again. Beyond this video where I'm showing it, this is probably my only TIE design that I would say I don't like. Every other TIE fighter I would say I'm actually a really big fan of, but this one, no. This one I am not a fan of at all. I can't say I really enjoyed it. When I built it, I wasn't a fan of it, and then looking back at it now, I'm still not a fan of it. So, yeah. This is my TIE Bomber design. Really pleased with this. As you can see, it's dropping bombs. This is another TIE Bomber. I thought this was different, never mind. This down here is... I want to say... I think that one's... Yeah, I think this one's the TIE Interdictor. Yeah, this one's the TIE Interdictor. It's got 4 missile tubes, and when I built it, I just looked at it and I was like, wow, that's a really cool ship. But the only thing I will say is if I try and land it, obviously, these bad boys are going to blow up. But, you know what? Who cares? I don't know. If I'd put this one higher, obviously it would have clashed with that. But, yeah, maybe I could have done it so that it just had a direct connection to there rather than having it down one and then there. And then over here, my final TIE Fighter variant was my TIE EMP. So the idea is this, these areas up here are EMP rings, and once again, this is a really weird design, but it's based upon old Legends books and old Legends lores that I've read, and I love it. You know what, I will say straight up that this is a really funky design. You know, it's a TIE Bomber, but it's not a bomber. It's got whatever the heck that thing up the back is. And to be quite frank, I wouldn't have it any other way. I might possibly do this with a turquoise glass rather than the turquoise wall, but as always, that block didn't exist back in the day, so I worked with what I had. Ah, wow. Next is Darth Vader's castle. This I absolutely loved. Once again, shockingly based upon the Lego build. Massively wrong, but a really fun build nonetheless. You know, I think this is coal blocks. Oh, yeah, block of coal. And as I say, I love it, but God, it's bad. You know, if I wanted to in the future, I could possibly bring this across to my other world and have it as a kind of monument type thing. But this isn't the castle at all. No, no, no. Fly up, come along. My next build, which I'm going to show off, is this. This is just fun, you know. I used the TIE Interceptor wings to build these parts, and look, it's even got a massive cannon in the middle. It's got the front, so the idea I had in my head was this here was the cockpit. You would see just there ahead of you, and it meant you couldn't see below. But then the idea would be you'd probably have people below us here, which would then have access to these cannons, which would then kind of give guidance. But this is one of my first ever original Star Wars ships, which is based upon Star Wars, but isn't specifically in Star Wars, or actually a Star Wars ship. And I love it. It just, everything about it is cool. That engine there is based upon the Force Awakens engine, where Starkiller has his ship and the Rogue Shadow, and it comes up. So when it lands, it comes up there, and then it goes back down when it comes off. And I love it, but I wouldn't have that for that ship. That just wouldn't fit, I don't think. This was when I was originally trying to be a bit different with my building. So I built Darth Vader's castle, and then I thought to myself, right, let's give a go at a building that's a bit different and a bit weird. And this was my first ever attempt. And once again, you can see as my building progressions happened, because these blocks, when the game first came out, so when that starship there came along, these blocks, some of them didn't exist. So for example, you'll know that this one here did exist and stuff like that. So you can kind of generally speaking tell when I built things based upon the blocks. So this whole area here is fairly new. Although, as I say, I never did go away from using wall blocks for spaceships and stuff like that. Just because it looks fun. And then finally, this was my last bit over here. I built a bad guy version of the Jedi Temple. And the main reason I enjoy it was just this bit here, the patterns. I thought it looked really evil kind of thing. And like from a distance, it just looks a bit spooky. And if I'd ever finished it, which I have done on one of my other maps, I think it would have looked great. But I never actually did finish those bits on the other maps, which is just sad. Up there is a droid carrier, and this is a really fun ship which I built. But once again, as with a lot of the builds, this is just bad. I didn't think it was that... I don't know why, but I never built it that big of a ship. So when it's there, it kind of looks like an animal putting its foot down. You know, it's got that kind of shape. Rather than it being an imposing, you know, droid dropship, it looks just kind of sad. The top bit is quite nice, but even then, that's a bit too small. And it's too small for the thickness I've given it. And then we're going to come over this way. And there's Krennic's ship again. I'm pretty sure that was that. And yeah. So, ooh, the engines for my Star Destroyer. I've just remembered one small thing. One big thing about these Star Destroyers is that engine. Ignore that bit there where it's broken. Just pretend it's not broken. But oh my god. This ship. Wow. I like me that engine. If there's one thing I love about my Star Destroyer engine, it's just how big it is and how just you look at it and go, wow, that is a big engine. And yeah. Oh my god, look, there's even beds in these places. Oh god. I really put effort back in the day. But yeah, so that is my tour for my Star Wars themed world. I might do some other small showcases quickly. But for now, I think that's me done. And thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. I've got a bit nostalgic for some of my old builds. So that one that I made that was Star Wars themed, but not specifically Star Wars. Fantastic. But I hope you enjoyed. Please give it a like and comment, you know, stuff you liked. You know, what was your favourite part of this map? And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.